What advice would you give new agents, people thinking about becoming agents? What would be your piece of advice?
Real estate is not for the faint of heart. I've seen so many people come into real estate thinking, oh, it's quick money, it's easy money. It's not.
Welcome to the first webcast here with Joe Wiesner, and this is Real Estate U, the guest series. And today I have a very special guest. She's a woman who is part of my organization, Joe Wiesner Realty. She came into the organization about 3 years ago. Maybe she'll correct me on that. But she's proven to be a top player in real estate in a very short amount of time. And we're going to hear her story on how she started with no real estate sales experience, and then 3 years later, she's at the top of her game and one of the top agents in all of South Jersey. I wanted to welcome today Andrea LaFountaine.
Thank you so much.
Andrea, tell me a little bit about how you got to be here at the first webcast for Joe Wiesner Realty.
Well, you invited me.
Yes, you accepted.
I did. I'm always willing and able to do, as long as I'm able, I am willing to do things. I like, helping you out, and you help me out. And yeah.
Good. So your past, say, starting with high school, you started there, and tell me a little bit about your experience, and then through your formative years in the 20s, and tell me a little bit more about yourself that way.
Well, I went to Rutgers School of Business in Camden and graduated there with my BA in business. I was always, from a young age, very interested in entrepreneurship, and really wanted to own my own business. I didn't like being managed by other people. I had my own ideas, and I wanted to be able to share them. And, I have a creative side to me, so really wanted to find something that made that shine and come out. I have so much experience in so many different industries, between accounting and, payroll, meeting planning, all kinds of things. And then just kind of landed in real estate when, COVID hit and the lockdown, and we're sitting there, and I was unemployed at the time, trying to think of, what I could do that would be safe for my family. There wasn't a lot of risk involved in real estate like there is with, starting your own business and things like that. So, we my husband and I talked about it, and he really supported me, and I dove straight into it.
So you have an entrepreneurial mindset, and
Yes.
When did that start to develop in you?
I was a little kid, and, you hear a lot now about kids making bracelets and things like that. I did the same thing when I was a kid, and I loved it.
And you went to Rutgers School of Business?
Yes.
And then you became an accountant.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I did accounting through school. I
Okay.
worked while I went to school, so yeah.
So it sounds like a real damper on your creativity, accounting.
Yes, it was.
Nice.
Yeah. And once you kind of get into a field like that, it's hard to jump out of it. So it took some time, but I was blessed with the people that I was around that helped me kind of move out of that.
What was your first sales experience? What industry?
So I was in meeting planning, and they wanted to start moving towards sales-based and things like that. And I really wasn't interested, didn't, feel like it suited me. And then I ended up getting involved with Young Living, which is an MLM. And of course, people have their own takes on that. But I didn't feel like I was being a salesperson. I believed in the product, and I was speaking from the heart when I spoke to people.
And
So
MLM means?
multi-level marketing. So
Right.
it's not a pyramid scheme. It is not a Ponzi scheme.
Wait, isn't that what I heard? It's a pyramid scheme.
No, it's not. They're illegal.
Well, isn't everything really a pyramid? I mean,
Right.
Isn't my organization set up as a pyramid? It is.
I don't
Well, there's
know.
the CEO, right? And then you have staff, and then you have agents, and you have customers.
Right.
I think every structured organization, capitalist organization is set up that way.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I can see that. I don't feel that here, though.
Oh, no, not the, some of the teachings are a little bit different that way, but it's the structure is very similar, I do believe. So what was the decision? What was the fateful day that, hey, I want to do real estate?
I don't even know what triggered it. My husband may have mentioned it. I know some friends, I had talked to them and they were like, I think you'd be great because you listen to people and you listen to what they want. And, the group of friends that I had their own experiences in real estate and the people that they dealt with. And then knowing that I was empathetic and compassionate and, it kind of fit into somewhere where I could succeed. It would be a little different than the norm.
So for anybody that's thinking about entering into real estate, what was your experience? What was the bar to entry?
You mean as far as like schooling and everything?
What was it, a high bar? Was it a low bar to get in? Was the schooling difficult? Was it?
So it definitely takes a special kind of person to get through it. I've always done really well scholastically. So, the work I wasn't afraid of. It was almost tedious because I did the 2 week straight through. So it's 8 hours a day sitting in front of a computer. It took a lot in that respect. The state exam was not the easiest. I did pass on my first go round, so I was happy about that. But I know people that have taken it 4, 5, 6 times, and
Right.
it's not easy.
So it's 75 hours, right, of schooling.
Or 80, something like that, yeah.
You got to pass the school test, and then once you pass that test, you're able to take the state real estate exam,
Right.
which I believe you could take up to 6 times in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
Right? But you got through it the first time?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you got through all that. Then you got to get fingerprinted,
Oh, yeah.
right? State of New Jersey requirement. And then you need to shop for a real estate broker.
Yep.
So tell me about your experience that way.
So the school that I did, the real estate school, they set up a couple of webinars with local brokers to talk to them and kind of see what they had. I really loved this experience because for once I was on the other side. I had kind of my own expectations of what I was looking for. And I think I would probably talk to 4 or 5 brokerages. And everybody was so different. So, personalities really had to mesh.
Right. So that was important to you, the feel, the culture.
Yes.
And you're able to determine that just in an hour meeting typically.
Oh, yeah.
So you're
Absolutely.
able. And for those that you didn't choose, what was the feeling?
So I was coming out of the corporate world. I really did not want to go back into it. I was looking for something that, honored creativity and, my own ideas of having a business. So, there were a couple places I walked into and it was very corporate and very, suit and tie. And I wasn't into that. I really didn't feel like I belonged there.
Right. So it comes to the point where it's independent versus the corporation.
Right.
And that's something that was important in creation of the company right from the outset, was to be that independent beacon of real estate, to be that independent leader, and to foster creativity. So you were exactly the person that we were looking for.
That's perfect.
But I think the reality was I didn't know what I was getting exactly in the beginning. You never really know.
Right.
And you've proven yourself to be worthy of the task. And it's quite a lift, because most of the agents, and I don't want to get into stats and things like that, but most of the agents have trouble making it through the first year.
Right.
Was your experience that way, or did you have success right out of the gate? Tell me about that.
My first year in real estate, it was rough. It was definitely rough. And I think that's the thing, that's what kind of makes people stand out if they can get through that first year. I had low times, I had high times, there were disappointments, but I knew that, the more I worked and the harder I worked and got through that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The difference, I think, between, being in corporate world where it just is the way it is, nothing really changes. In real estate, I had more of a handle on it. I could change it. I could determine how it was. I could choose how my day was going to be, or, how I could make the end result different.
And that's the power of it, isn't it? The freedom,
Yes.
the freedom of the entrepreneur, that cannot be understated. But I believe a lot of people choose the safety of the corporation,
Yeah.
or the corporate lifestyle versus the independent, freedom, entrepreneurialism. And real estate to me has always been that vehicle where you have the ability to use your creativity, and you're
Yeah.
not. I don't think that there's a time that I've told any of my agents not to use their creativity. Where you're really, really limited. You have to ask many times with the big corporations, and I think in order for agents to really flourish, they need to be able to have that creative freedom.
Absolutely.
And you were able to accomplish your first sale, say, how long into your career? How long did it take you?
Maybe 3 or 4 months. I don't think it was very long, my first sale. But like I said, the first year was rocky, so it was,
Right.
up and down, but
Right. And you came into it where your husband already had a stable.
yes.
He's a police officer, I believe, in South Jersey. So you had that stability that way. So it was a little bit, you had a safety net in a
Yes.
sense.
Yes.
What would you recommend to a new agent coming into the business that had no safety net?
Ooh. So rule of thumb is always to have, I don't know, what is it, 3, 6 months worth of savings in the bank, because there is going to be downtimes. There's going to be times where you just don't have a closing, and there's that. And then the other side of it is hustle. I mean, I know as a society we've kind of gotten away from that. It's like taboo to say hustle, hustle, but that's really what it is. You have to, feet on the ground running and work hard.
Yeah, I would agree. The real estate game, and that's how I kind of look at it, as a structured game. But if you're able to play it well, and one of the first things that you had mentioned is the hustle part of playing, and that's a huge part of your initial success, and that's what we look for. At least I do anyway. I don't know about the other real estate brokers. Can you handle the pressure?
Right.
And can you handle the chaos sometimes of real estate? Can you handle specific situations where maybe not everything's going smoothly? And really, in real estate, there's nowhere to hide. It's just you and the public, you and your client. And you're going to get good news and you're going to get bad news. And I don't know, my experience is that the bad news was always very difficult to deliver.
Yeah.
Was that something that you even thought about coming in, where there's so many ups and downs in a deal? Is that something that was in your mindset?
Coming into it having absolutely, I mean, listen, when we bought our house, I didn't pay attention. So I had no idea how the process went. I didn't understand, my husband kind of took care of everything. So I didn't really have any preconceived notions coming into it. I knew that, there were objections that I was going to have to handle. And, people being uneducated and the things that, would kind of, where I would have to educate them then. I don't know if I can say that there was anything, that I thought, oh, well.
Yeah, it's just, I think the culture today is so, I guess, bubble wrapped,
Yeah.
where there's not a whole lot of, criticism. There's some of that happens in real estate, and a lot of new agents aren't able to handle that type of, conversation sometimes. So, the hustle and the thick skin, that's, I think, a big part of real estate. Would
Oh,
you
yeah.
agree with that?
Absolutely. And my skin has grown thicker and thicker every year. I look back at that first year, and there's a few different instances where, I took everything in stride, but then there was like one that would just topple me, and I don't have that anymore. I've learned that, hey, sometimes deals just don't work out. but
Right.
I keep going, I keep pushing forward, and there's another one or two or three that'll work out.
You can control what you can control, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you're doing the best that you can. You can't control what the other side is doing sometimes. You
Right.
just have no idea that way. In building your business, what would you say the three key elements are to building a successful real estate business?
Consistency, I think, is huge. And consistency across the board, right? So if you have social media marketing, you have to be consistent in order to be seen. Consistency in how you talk to people, how you treat people, how you educate people. So that's one.
Well, let's talk about that consistency. So that that is huge. That you're going to have some kind of routine, I suppose.
Yes.
And in an unstructured world of real estate, because predominantly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're working from home most of the time,
Right.
right? So a lot of people can handle that, but some people have a lot of difficulty with the unstructured nature of that. And how have you fared that way?
It took me a while to kind of get into a routine and get down what I needed, but I love it. I absolutely love it now. And that was one of the biggest things for me in choosing to go into real estate, was that I could be there for my kids when I needed to be there. A lot of people think real estate agents make their own hours and whatever. And sometimes we do, but in the same respect, I work weekends, I work nights. There's some clients I have that can't, they work a full-time job.
Right,
So, you know,
I would agree. The consistency part is a huge element to success.
yeah.
What are the other keys to your success and things that you could recommend to agents that are just up and coming and maybe they hit the wall sometimes and are having a little struggle, like you're talking about, that it always hasn't been straight, a straight line, to success. There's ups and downs all the time in this, and dusting yourself off and getting back up.
Right.
Is there ever a time that you didn't want to get back up?
I can't say that there has been. I've always been motivated to get back up. There's something about real estate that I love and intrigues me. So,
Is it about real estate or is it about you?
maybe it's about me in real estate.
Yeah, there's I see that in you, and it's the consistency and the will to carry on, and that's big.
Yeah.
As far as creating business, how do you do that?
How do I generate more?
Yeah, how do you get clients?
So, my sphere of influence, definitely past clients, people that I know, people in my neighborhood. I do a lot of social media marketing, generate postcards and things like that, mailers. So marketing's a big one. But another one is, office generated leads. There's a lot of leads that I've gotten through the office and they've come back. So I've sold a house sold a house and then sold a house, and then they come back and I sell their house, and so
So that program that we have works out well.
absolutely.
And just to give a little background to that, new agents that come in, we are able to generate leads as a company because we have a strong internet presence, social media presence, website presence. It generates leads, reputation. It generates leads, and the new agents coming in up to a certain level within the compensation scale, they're eligible for leads. It's not a forever thing, but it's a proving ground where we get to see who could play and who is going to be able to close deals and just create an environment for the customer where it's a positive experience. So initially, we typically do that with rentals in the beginning. Is that what we did for you?
I had rentals and buyers.
Good. So, but that was a good way to really learn the business with the backing of the company.
Oh yeah.
Right? So, there's an admin staff, Jen and, Christina, that are very, very helpful in helping the agents, I believe, in the beginning to,
Yes.
get started. So that was good. But then you're also mixing in, knowing that that's a temporary situation, your own lead generation sources. And you mentioned a bunch of them there.
Yeah.
So not the least of which, and maybe we'll do that one last, the social media.
Yes.
But you had mentioned postcards, and tell us a little bit more about your lead generation.
So I found a company online that generates postcards, and I chose this company in particular because they have QR codes on their postcards, and it automatically says, see what your house value is or whatever. So every time somebody scans that QR code, it goes into a database that I have access to. And then I have, it's called Fast Track, and it just shoots out postcards to that particular person over, a 6-week time period, because, you need to touch people more than once to get them to pay attention.
So that's pretty high tech. The QR code, I don't really know of any other agent that's doing that in South Jersey.
No.
Until now. but that's great. And you have done that for how long?
Just over a year, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So postcards, and what were the other vehicles that you mentioned?
I have a shelter box ad display.
A shelter box. What is that?
Oh, so one of the little boxes that are on the side of the road that, usually by bus stops where people can stand inside out of the rain and elements. Okay. But it's almost like a billboard, but it's more useful. And I'm right on the side of it.
And you have a slogan?
Yes.
What is that slogan?
Ask Andrea.
Ask Andrea.
Yes, your real estate ally.
That's awesome. Wow, that's why is your name branded like that everywhere?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm hashtagging Ask Andrea on everything that I do.
So this is really important for the new agents, and I guess the veteran agents that don't want to brand themselves. I think it's pretty important to build a brand.
Absolutely.
Because we're competing against the other 17,000 agents in South Jersey, right? Yeah. Just South Jersey, and those that build a brand have a chance for real longevity and have the opportunity to build wealth in the business. My belief is that every person that's looking to buy or sell, they know 3 real estate agents.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not in that conversation of 3, you have no chance whatsoever of getting that business. So building a brand, it takes time though, right? It's not, it's years typically in the making. It's not something you do overnight. Right. But that's where the consistency comes back into play. And if you're consistent and you build every year, you have more clients, and then your referral base begins to grow, and then things really start to flourish. Right where you are, year 3 and 4, is when you're kind of in that segment where you could really generate some large numbers and large volume. So is that been your experience?
Yeah. I've started. I was confused at first on branding and how I was to brand, and, went back and forth with, okay, is it my face? Is it my name? Is it a tagline? Like, what is it? But, as time went on and I gained more experience, I kind of honed in on what that was and what it meant for me. So,
but building the brand is, it's everything, where there's ubiquity with the postcards, the shelter boxes, what you're doing on social media, that's all tied into the same type of mantra. Yep. And over time, the idea is to have mind share with the public. Right. And have you found that people are asking for you by name now, by Andrea LaFountaine?
I don't know if I can say that's,
not yet.
Overwhelming.
not yet. You haven't
Right.
You haven't reached that critical mass, but you keep going that route. You will.
Consistency.
So that's really interesting to me. The struggle on what to brand.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you branding? And I think you got it right. You brand you.
Yes.
Right. You're the brand. Real estate is the commodity. And the more the public can embrace you as the agent, as the source to solve their real estate need, that takes away a lot of the uncertainty in the marketplace, because as a brand new person, they have no idea about you, right? And you're not the trusted brand just yet, so you have to work a little harder.
Yes.
I would assume in the beginning. Is that
Yes.
is that correct?
Yeah.
So the workload in the first, say, 6 to 12 months versus now, has it changed? Has it shifted direction? Tell me a little bit about how
Yeah.
it's different than when you first started in that first year, your focus.
The miles that I put on my car in that first year were insane. That for starters.
How many miles do you think you put on?
Oh boy, in 1 year, 3,000 miles. Does that sound right?
It's probably
I don't
more.
even know.
It's probably more.
More than
yes,
that.
I think
Probably.
I think probably triple that.
I was way over my lease mileage, and my car sat in the driveway for a few months. Yeah, it's a huge difference because I mean the other thing is I've learned how to become efficient. Right. I've learned how to talk to clients and let them know, okay, you want to see this house. Well, how about we put it on one day with 3 or 4 other houses instead of going 3 or 4 days driving back and forth, just as one example. But, efficiency, I think, would be another thing that you need in this business.
So it's time management and scheduling.
Yes.
Do you follow a specific schedule?
Not really. Kind of. I have an appointment book type of planner, and I do time blocking a lot. So that might be,
And a time block would look like, say, your average morning. What would that look like real estate wise?
Well, I have personal things that I do in the morning, so that gets time blocked out. And then after that, it's, lead generation, making phone calls, touching base with people. And then there's another block for any driving that I have to do. So whether it's showings or delivering checks or meeting up for checks or whatever, things like that. And then just kind of cycling back where then I touch base. I'm going through listings and seeing if anything hit the market that my current clients would be interested in, and, trying to touch people that I haven't talked to in a while, things like that. And just kind of go from there. And then it's, dinner and family time.
So in the morning, lead generation would look like, what are you doing lead generation? Why, and how long are you doing it for?
I'm probably not doing it as long as I should be. But I'll do, I'll go back into my CRM and look at, okay, here's a few people that I haven't talked to in a while. Let's reach out. Hey, whether it's a text message, an email, a phone call, whatever, avenue that is, and just say, hey, how are you? How have you been? Are you still looking? Or, have you reconsidered, whatever?
And that CRM, that would be a customer, what is that acronym? CRM. A customer relationship management system, right?
Sure.
It's a CRM.
Yes.
So the backbone of the CRM initially would be your warm market, would be your family and friends.
Right.
So you're going to be calling them just to say, hey,
Right.
And what are you talking about in those conversations? Are you talking about real estate? Or are you just catching up, or is it a combination?
Definitely a combination. I never want to overwhelm anybody, but if it's somebody that we've already, if our relationship was built in real estate, then it usually starts there. If I've built a relationship or a rapport with that person beyond that, then I'll ask, oh, how was your birthday? How is your 1-year-old doing?
Right.
Are you married yet?
But
and then
it's got to come from a source, though, not of sales, right?
Right.
Really, it's got to come from a place of you really care about your
Absolutely.
clients, and you want to know about what their family is doing, and how their situation, how the house they bought is, and those kinds of
Right.
things. You really
Right.
want to get into that. So I do the same thing. I call just to say, hey.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't even talk about real estate, and that's what makes it, nice. And if you fill in the other spaces of real estate with social media, they know that you're out there. And
Right.
That's one of the most frustrating things in real estate is that by not following up when that person who was with you, then you find out, and you always find out, right, in real estate,
Yep.
if somebody fell through the cracks and purchased a house, or listed their house with somebody else that was in your warm market.
Yeah.
Have you felt that pain before?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Tell me about that.
I mean, working months and months and months with someone, getting to know them, getting to know their family, having their parents at showings, the whole nine. And then, just being told, hey, yeah, we're not going to look right now. And then find out a few months later that they bought with somebody else.
Right.
And, it's almost heartbreaking. And it was one of the things I had to learn after that first year that, as like, I'm empathetic in that I build these relationships, right? And then I feel like I have this friendship with these clients. And then, the deal is done, settlement is closed, and I don't hear from them anymore. And I'm upset. Like these are my friends,
Right.
So to have somebody completely jump ship and go with someone else, it hurts.
Right. And the management of that. So over the last few years, you've gotten better at handling that. But
Yes.
I guess the best remedy is just to keep in touch.
Yes.
And then if you've done what you're supposed to do, keeping in touch, and something like that happens, it just doesn't bother you as much. Right. Because it probably really, it wasn't you. It wasn't a real relationship that they valued.
Right.
So it's easier that way.
Yeah. And then I know there was nothing I could have done anyway. I followed up. I did what I felt was right. So
I think there's this misconception with agents that when they are following up with their past clients, that somehow they're bothering them.
Yeah.
I've never found that to be the case. Have you found that to be the case?
I think in the beginning, coming into all of this, that's how I felt. I was, when I was doing Young Living, like I mentioned before, I was horrible at follow-up, horrible, because I didn't want people to feel like I was hounding them or bothering them. And, it's sales. We all have this like idea that salesmen are sleazy and, whatever. And I never wanted to be that. So it's taken me a while to kind of come out of that. But I'm learning that, I'm just saying, hey, I'm just seeing how they're doing. I'm not, you have to sell, you have to buy right now.
Yes. So your approach is definitely your anti-hard sell.
Yeah.
Yes. And so am I.
No pressure ever.
You come more from a point of view of consultant,
Yes.
right? And you would advise as you were advising one of your family members.
Absolutely.
Is what it would be. That's the right approach.
Yeah.
I can't stand the hard sell. I really don't like it at all. And a lot of agents still are employing those tactics from, the 70s and 80s and, those things that, lead the customer down the path, and the customer kind of knows that they're being manipulated.
Right.
And the bottom line is you have to have their best interest at heart. You have to put your affinities, aside. You may need to make, whatever payment you need to make in that particular month, but if it's not in the best interest of your client, you need to advise that way. But a lot of agents get that reversed, and it's easy to spot.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing to lead empathetically. As you said, that's exactly the way to do it.
I actually had a client go under contract on a purchase, and we had something come up midway through, and I advised him. I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. I'm like, it's not about that check at settlement table for me. It's about the people that I work with and deal with, that they make a sound investment, that they're getting what they want and what they need, and not being taken advantage of.
Right. And there's so many things that could happen in a real estate deal. There's some things that you just can't believe how you ended up there in a real estate deal. At least that's my experience. Sometimes, like how you couldn't write a story that was better than how it actually unfolded. Some of the things that may not be readily apparent to buyers, especially. Like, is there any anecdotal story of things that have come up that would never be suspected in the beginning and then surface and like, oh my God, how do we handle that?
There's so many stories. Tell me,
I'm sure it's going to be good.
Selling a house. The owner is an electrician, and we don't know anything about permits. Like, he assumes permits are closed and everything's good and whatever. And Come to find out, the city actually requires a permit to install a hot water heater. My seller is getting upset and frustrated. He's like, I'm an electrician, blah, blah, blah. Why do I have to do this? And most people don't know that you need a permit to install a hot water heater, whether it's,
Right.
connected to gas or electric or whatever. So that was funny, but that took a long time. And it was excruciating to get through because, the homeowner didn't know what to do and the city wasn't really guiding him properly. And it was my first experience, so I couldn't really guide him. And
Isn't it interesting that we know so little oftentimes about our clients, our buyer and seller clients, and upon meeting them, over the telephone, a lot of times real estate happens over the telephone, but then inevitably you meet face to face. And you really should be getting agreement signed. I mean, you're definitely getting a listing agreement signed, and you definitely should be getting a buyer's agreement, although not mandatory. Maybe it is going to be that way in the near future. But when you do sit down and talk with them, it's really important to unearth the things that they're not telling you.
yes,
Because you're not telling them everything about you, right? And all the things that you're going to do, for many reasons, I suppose, just for length of, things you don't want to, kind of tout, too much at one time. But they're not telling you about every mispayment that they had on the buyer side. They're not telling you perhaps something that's wrong with the house on the listing side, on the seller side. You need to really sit down and be focused and be able to ask really pointed questions to kind of get a little bit closer to moving the deal forward.
yeah,
And you can't move the deal forward if we're kind of at square one with the buyer and seller. So I think it's really important that new agents know that you have to ask a lot of questions in the beginning, a lot of
Yes.
questions.
yes,
And I think new agents are timid in that respect. But my advice is not to be and ask all the pointed questions. What do you say about that?
I think that's a good point. The more that I do this and the more transactions that I'm involved in, the more questions I know to ask. In the beginning, I was just like, oh, I don't know, whatever. And now I'm like, oh no, I have a list of things that I need answered so that I know what I'm dealing with, because I can't help someone who doesn't give me all the information.
On the buyer side, what is important at the initial phases? Let's say that you generate a lead and you have a conversation on the phone. What's the next thing that happens for you to get to that point where I know that they're qualified to buy at a particular price? What do you do?
Well, I do require pre-approval or pre-qualification from a lender
Okay.
before I take them out to showings. I need to know that you can actually pay for this house because it's my time. It's your time, my time, the seller's time, whatever.
Would you say that most agents do that in the field?
I believe so. But there's still a handful of agents that don't. I'd say maybe 95% do. But
What if you run into a scenario where, and getting back to we'll get to that, the pre-qualification part, pre-approval part, is that something that you handle, or does the buyer typically do that on their own?
I'd say probably 8 times out of 10, the buyer already has their pre-approval. They've learned somewhere along the line that they need that.
Okay.
But if they don't, I can help them with it. We have preferred lenders and people that I've worked with a lot that I highly recommend, and I'll send them over that way.
Okay. And the next step then, as far as you have the pre-qualification, pre-approval letter in your hands, then what's the conversation like?
So I do talk to the buyers and find out what it is they're looking for, what areas they want to be in, what their must-haves are, what their, this would be nice type of thing. And then we start looking. We send each other houses, and I look further into the MLS to see if they're suited, if they're going to be the right kind of financing, things like that. See if it's really, if it's manageable for them.
Right.
And then set up a tour. So we go check them out in person.
And you really get to know these people, don't you? When you're out and about with people,
Yes.
isn't it amazing? Like how, and you do become friends and almost family in many cases.
Oh yeah.
And that's what makes it difficult too when you're acting professionally and you do have bad news, it's like you're breaking bad news to like a
Yes.
family member or something along
Yes.
those lines. So, yeah, it's very interesting how that dynamic works. On the seller side, when you're taking a listing, it's a completely different dynamic, right,
Yeah.
than on the buyer side,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes, I think, real estate really quite compelling and different every single day. Is that you're working with buyers and sellers,
Yeah.
and the seller's needs are typically not exactly the same as the buyer, right? So it's a conversation almost in reverse.
Right. Yeah.
What's your experience been working with sellers? What questions do you ask sellers initially to get the transaction off on the right foot?
Well, I need all the information about the house and if there's any liens, because liens are important. I need to know about them. Anything that, I mean, I try not to get too particular about things, but I need to know what I'm dealing with so that way I can market the house. If there's a tenant, if there's a family member that won't leave, things like that. And then, if there was work done to the house recently, why something is the way that it is, something that stands out to me walking through their house, I know is going to stand out to buyers and I'm going to be asked about it. So I need
Right.
to be able to address it.
And do you find that most sellers are forthcoming with all pertinent information?
Of course not. Of course not.
Even regardless of how well we go in, and you have to be careful, right, in the beginning of a listing appointment, because then if you come off like you're trying to pry too much, they could back off and just say, well, or you just don't get the call back
Right.
to actually get the listing signed.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on a listing appointment, what would you say the percentage of listings get signed at that point?
I mean, I haven't had a million of them, but I'd say, I probably lost 2 out of 10 that I was on.
When you're typically on a listing appointment, you're at the house, right?
Yes.
You're meeting the people at the house where they live. When you go there for the first time and you're sitting with them, how often do you get that listing agreement signed?
Pretty often, like 90% of the time.
Really, that's good. That's good. My ratio isn't as nearly as high.
Well, you've had a lot more listing appointments, so my ratio will go down the more that I do, I'm sure.
I think that initially people are they bring the real estate agents in for multiple reasons to list. But I take that back. Sometimes it's not to list.
Right.
Sometimes it's just to get my brain picked.
Yeah.
And I've had my brain picked more than I care to talk about, but that's part of the business, right? I mean, you don't know until you actually go down the road and explore it, and you could see if you have a connection, with that seller. And then what's interesting is some sellers are very standoffish in the beginning on the telephone and kind of abrupt, and you kind of go into it thinking, well, is that person just not having the greatest day, or is that their personality, or is it just that they're so unsure about the process? And then I find when you sit down with them, though, it's a whole different story. The demeanor, if you come across as composed, knowledgeable, and prepared, that kind of changes things.
Yes.
Is that something that you have recognized as well?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, but yeah, the listing, sometimes you're there just to get a price to confirm what the other agent has already acknowledged, and you're just in there as like the second, the second opinion at that point.
I'm pretty sure one of the listings that I lost, they ended up doing a for sale by owner. I'm pretty positive it went that direction.
Right. So, I guess I've developed, skills over time where I could kind of unearth that by asking certain questions. So it's interesting, though. I'd say that my success ratio in sitting down with a lister for the first time is probably about 60%.
Okay.
Right. And then 25 to 30% are things that just get delayed, or they need to clean out the house, or
Yes.
there's a relative that's whatever out of town, or we need a POA, or there's some kind of, and that could take months and months.
Oh yeah.
So a good follow-up system is key there. And we do lose from time to time, and sometimes when that happens, it gives you a chance to reflect and get better and improve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always painful, though. Is it as painful for you as it is for me?
I'm sure. Yeah, it is painful because, of course, then I sit back and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And I start nitpicking everything that I did and agonizing over, I should have never said this. I shouldn't have done that. But I learned from it, right? So,
Right.
I've learned to move away from that, think about the things that I can improve on, kind of change my game up a little bit. So every time I'm rejected, I learn from that and, I get better and better. So your rejection only shows that you've come this far and you've gotten better and better. And
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's kind of like baseball. If you are hitting 333, that means that you make 2 outs for every one that you get on base, and you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
So real estate
right.
is much the same way, that way. So I think that's what agents don't recognize, is the amount of rejection that
Yeah.
occurs in the business.
Yes.
And we're not just talking about like cold calling or door knocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's just losing sometimes.
Right.
And that's how long does it affect you when that happens to, it happens to all of us, but how long does it affect you? Like, how long does it
Sit with me,
does
eat me up.
does it play in your mind after that, hey, this didn't work out the way that I wanted to?
Right. Less and less nowadays, just because I've learned to kind of accept it, take it in, process it, and move on. I've learned that, I can learn from this, right? Like there's got to be a lesson in there somewhere. I remember first year of real estate being down and out, and I had no control over it. My buyer didn't get his mortgage and the entire deal fell apart. And I worked with them for a solid 8 months, and it was devastating. There wasn't anything I could have done about that. It was out of my control.
Right.
If it's something like a listing appointment that is a little more in my control, then I learn from it. I'm like, I probably shouldn't have gone over the contract first thing. I should have talked to them about what I can provide them and what my value is. So, I learned to kind of flop things around. And
Yeah, it's always about the value proposition.
Yes.
And I find that most agents aren't very good at articulating that.
yes,
So, but that's something important, agents out there,
Very much.
is to know what your value is. And if you don't know what that is, you should probably figure that out.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very important. And not just for, listing appointments. I've had people come back at me and I had to debate over my commission. And listen, I'm worth this. I am worth this. That's why it's charged. And,
Well, what is the value proposition then to be one of the elites as far as earning power is concerned?
Right.
What is your value?
I mean, there's a lot that I do as far as marketing and things like that. But I go to bat for my clients, and I'm there in the trenches with them. I'm not letting them go on the wayside.
Right.
I'm guiding them. I'm talking to them. I'm communicating with them. I am there. I am their best friend while their house is listed. And,
Right.
that's my value. That's a big part of my value anyway. But there's a lot that goes into that.
So the value you're pointing towards negotiation value there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So on either side of the equation, whether on the buyer side or seller side, you could earn either side quite the credit by being able to negotiate certain things well.
Yes.
And that's what I believe gets lost in a lot of the equation as far as value is concerned. And you mentioned for sale by owner. Well, your negotiating ability and your ability to be able to foresee problems before they happen,
Yeah.
right, is huge.
Yes.
And the interim time there where you could make decisions, the right decisions, and with your guidance, you're able to do that.
Absolutely.
But I know that on the buyer side, I could save a buyer $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 sometimes, depending on one word or one phrase that I put into the contract. And the same thing on the seller side. I know that coming in completely prepared, knowing all the comps in that area and really coming up with a detailed analysis, that we could price it at a certain point where it's going to create the proper market tension.
Yes.
You price it too low, there are strategies otherwise, I suppose, but you price it too low, you're putting most of the time your seller at a real disadvantage. You price it too high, you're putting them at a disadvantage as well. But you have to understand the trend in the market, right?
Yes.
And that's what we're really, really good at. Those that are completely immersed, full-time professionals, we know exactly what's going on trend-wise in the market. And it's changeable, market to market. So what happens in Cherry Hill maybe happens differently in Ocean City. It's a completely different market.
Absolutely.
What's happening in Washington Township is different than what's happening in Galway Township. So you need to know that, I guess, real estate is local.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to parse the numbers in all those municipalities. So that's what the value is a lot of times. And then the value is, well, how many people are you exposing this property to,
Right.
especially on the listing side? So let's get into that a little bit,
Oh, boy.
right? Because you have a natural affinity, and I see all the work that you do on social media, and I don't really see a whole lot of agents doing what you're doing. I guess, why do you do it, and how is it effective in your business? And then what are you using? What platforms?
I'm going to give you the real answer. It's free marketing, and it's easy. I mean, you can't get any better than that, right? I mean, I don't have to spend $500-$600 a week to post on Facebook. It's free, and as long as you're consistent, people will start looking. I use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, YouTube, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. So
I'm like, there's another one.
Twitter?
No.
Oh, wait, X.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I have not, in all the years that they've been around, I haven't been able to figure them out. And I did go hardcore the first year using that and just trying to kind of figure out where I stood. And somebody called me out as a spammer, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. I don't need you and your negativity. I'm over it. But it wasn't, I didn't find that there was any kind of effect.
So you had the internet Twitter police at the time?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I mean, and it was probably just some silly random person that did that and tagged me. But I'm like, how do I get rid of this? I couldn't even untag myself.
Right, and then to try to get out of that, social media jail, it's like almost impossible to get out. It's really, it's so powerful, and we now use it so often, and we kind of almost are addicted to it in a way as marketers, that we tolerate that type of censorship. It's kind of, I'm really not pleased with, the control, but it does seem like it's easing up a little bit to me. So I'm happy about that. But your platform of choice would be what?
Probably Facebook, only because I understand it much better. I'm also an older generation, so my people are out there. There's not a lot of younger kids on Facebook. So the people that I'm targeting that I can relate to are there.
And then on Facebook, you have your personal page and business page. Do you advertise on both?
I will share from my business onto my personal. So I'll share from side to side, but not too often, because my personal page is my personal page, and that's more for, my friends and my family and everything. And I don't want to overwhelm the people over there.
Right.
I do want them to see what I'm doing, and I want them to come over to my business page. So that's why I will do the occasional.
And then how do you generate leads off of Facebook? Like, what's the mechanism?
When I'm posting things, either I'm posting educational videos, things that, me talking or whatever, or I'm posting that, hey, I have this new listing, or I have a new rental, or I have a new something. People comment and interact with that, and that's how they kind of come into me. I have past clients and friends that will tag other people because they know they're looking for something. So then at that point, it's a matter of follow-up, right? It's reach out, introduce myself, and continually follow up until they turn into a lead.
The is there a we do various forms of marketing where there's a form that's filled out but that's through our website,
Right.
and we could talk about that maybe momentarily. You do have a web presence. You have your own URL, right?
Yes.
And I think that that's something that's really important, that all agents have their own web presence, their own website, but what to put on it, this and that. I think that's another long conversation. We'll get into that maybe in another episode. But to actually get or convert viewers on Facebook into real buyer and seller leads, how does that happen?
I mean, they, like I said, they interact with my posts and things like that. So then I have private conversations with them,
Okay, so
kind of pull them
it's
off.
like a DM,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, sort of like that. I've generated leads through Facebook Marketplace, which it's not my favorite place to post something, but it's kind of a last resort, and people come out of the woodworks there. But it takes a little more kind of going through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that the people that are contacting me are real people.
Have you used the Facebook lead form?
I don't believe so. I was kind of beyond all of that, and I had my own CRM and everything before I found out about Facebook stuff.
Okay.
There was something at one point where apparently I have a lead sitting in there, but I don't even know. I don't know how to export it and get it out.
Then the other venues, Facebook is connected to Instagram.
Yes.
So that kind of makes it easy to post on both, right?
Yes.
So, but Instagram is completely different than Facebook, I find. And I talked to my daughter, who does a lot of the marketing distribution for the company. I still don't really understand completely Instagram. Can you educate me?
Instagram's more about pictures and photos and sharing that type of thing. There are a lot of online businesses that use, Instagram marketing. Stories is really big, and Reels has become really big in
So
in that respect.
let's talk about that.
Okay.
So a story is
A story.
What is the difference between a story and a reel?
Okay, so your story is something that you post and it changes. So you can post, say, 5 different things, and it sits there for like 10 seconds and then flips to the next, but it's not a video, and it disappears in 24 hours.
So what's the value of that?
I mean, I think people that want to kind of quickly go through things, see things that aren't in like your typical news feed.
So they would have to be friends with you in order to see that. No, so this would be on just the
public.
feed. It's the feed. Okay.
So your kind of news feed type of thing that you would have to sit there and scroll, that's your friends, that's who you have accepted to be there. Your stories are public, so anybody that happens to run into you or search you up can find your stories and see your stories.
Excellent. So the reel is what then compared to a story?
So the reel is like a quick video that you'd put together instead of just throwing a picture up there. I mean, you could do that too, but a reel is usually something funny or something. It's a video. It's it's just a short video that you do.
And TikTok in this whole equation, there's this constant attack on TikTok. Personally, I understand politically the political fodder of all of that. I don't believe that TikTok is going to take down the United States. So all of this talk about it, and what I think the brilliance of TikTok is that they've simplified Facebook and Instagram. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
That you don't have a business page, you don't have a personal page, you just have a TikTok, and you just put videos there, and you could watch the videos quickly, right?
Yes.
It's the speed to market. Isn't that what gives it that advantage?
Yeah.
What's your experience with that?
So when TikTok first came out, it was like these funny short clips, and then Reels kind of spurred off of that. So Instagram and Facebook kind of took what TikTok was doing and made their own thing. over the years, I've seen long form video on TikTok. So I feel like now TikTok has become somewhere in between even YouTube. So YouTube has their shorts, which are like reels, and then they have, you know, YouTube was built on long video. And more TikTok is doing longer and longer videos. They may not be half-hour segments, but they're doing, you know, a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Right. And they're easy to produce, right? And all these videos are, I guess they're easy to produce because we all have iPhones, right?
Right.
Or Galaxies, Androids, and you just got to. What do you have to do? You just have to take the phone out and hit record, right?
Yeah.
Why are so many agents afraid of that?
You know, agents, I think, are just afraid to get started. They don't know what to say, or they don't like the way that they look, or things have to be perfect. You know, I've kind of gotten past that. I'm like, listen, I'm me. If you're going to work with me, you've got to know who I am, right? So you're going to see me with messed up hair, or, you know, drenched from being out in the rain. That's what's real,
Right.
you know?
The authentic self.
Yes.
Right. And I think you're exactly right. There's too many vanity pieces where there's perfection being promoted, when I believe that people want to just see your authentic self. They want to see, you know, what really is happening behind the scenes. They don't want to see the airbrush. You know, they want to see real, you know.
Right.
And it's really organic is best. Just pick up your phone and start talking about real estate. You know, you are a licensee in the state of New Jersey. You know, you have an experience and knowledge base that others don't. Just talk about that.
There's always something to talk about, always.
There is. So you just have to take out the phone and hit record. And you can go out live, right? On YouTube, you can go live on Facebook, and you can go live on all of them, right?
I think so. I just found out, my friend told me on TikTok you need like 1,000 followers before you can go live. I have no idea how many followers I have.
So getting close to wrapping up here, what advice would you give new agents, or agents, or people thinking about becoming agents, or new agents that are just in it and maybe they're struggling a little bit? And I guess that would also extend to agents that are veteran agents that are struggling, right? And that happens all the time as well.
Yeah.
What would be your piece of advice for those?
You know, real estate is not for the faint of heart. And it most certainly, I've seen so many people come into real estate thinking, oh, it's quick money, it's easy money. It's not. You work your butt off, especially the first few years. Be prepared to work. If you can't work, then you're not going to make it. Consistency is key. Like, that is the biggest thing. Do the things that you know work over and over and over and over again, and it'll work for you. Other than that, I mean, this is a relationship business. It's all about building relationships. And that's the one thing that I've always been blessed with. It was easy for me to make friends. So that's all I'm doing. I'm going out there and I'm making friends and, you know, lifelong friends. And when other people see that I do care, that I actually care about them and where they're going and what they're looking at, and they aren't just another sale to me, you know, that speaks volumes.
It's coming from a place of empathy and generosity and just you know, human to human. You know, just the proper contact that way. Where can people, buyers, sellers, the public, where can they find you?
Well, I do have a website, askandrearealtor.com. There's nothing really there, but you can hit all of my social media tags there.
Okay.
You know, I'm the Real Realtor on most of the socials, so you can find me TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that way. And then we have our company website, thinkw.com. / Andrea-LaFountaine, and you can read my bio and see some properties and things like that there. And it's really a great website. You can do so much there, get a value of your house, or, you know, check out things in different areas. And
or they could just punch in Andrea LaFountaine and Google it, right? You'll come up all over the place.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure you have your Facebook handles, all that'll be right there. So Andrew, I want to thank you for coming in the inaugural Real Estate U episode. And it's been a real wealth of information and really coming from the source on how real estate really is, especially in the beginning building stages of your career. Yeah. And I appreciate all your efforts, and I appreciate your talent.
Thank you so much.
And it's just been a real pleasure working with you, and all of my staff, they really love working with you. And it's just been, a terrific experience. And I know that the buyers and sellers out there really, really enjoy working with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Real Estate U guest series. I'm Joe Wiesner. If you need to contact us in any which way, our information is on the end card. Thank you for watching.